I don't know how to do this one, and this, and this. Opening the practice sheets, Sophie circled almost every other question with her pencil. Let me take a look, Jacob said in a tired voice. He forced himself to look through the questions she had circled. This is only calculus. I still have physics, chemistry, biology. Like a magician pulling out streamers and rabbits out of thin air, Sophie began pulling out practice sheet after practice sheet from her drawer. Jacob was dizzy with exhaustion, and he couldn't concentrate on the problems Sophie was telling him about. Meanwhile, Sophie slouched on the bed with her arms crossed over her chest. Jacob looked at her and saw that she was gloating. This was her way of taking revenge on him for teasing her earlier and for making her work so hard on grammar. When did the high school curriculum get so complicated? Jacob cursed silently. He racked his brains for a solution. So, can you solve them or not? As he was struggling with mounting frustration, Sophie asked him enthusiastically. Jacob had tormented her in English, and now she was giving it right back to him. Jacob massaged his forehead. He felt like it was going to explode. However, it was too embarrassing for him to admit to Sophie that he, a university student, couldn't solve even the basic high school problems. He was about to become an engineering major, and the curriculum his fiancée had just dumped on him should have been a snap for Jacob. Only if he hadn't been so tired. It had been such a long day. Hand me all your textbooks. I think I need to go over the high school concepts and make some notes for you. Jacob put down the pen and said to her. Sophie frowned and said, But I need them for tomorrow's classes. It's fine. I'll only keep them for the night, Jacob said, looking confident. Okay, wait. Standing up, Sophie walked to the bed and picked up her backpack. She dug out 5 to 6 thick textbooks and gave them to Jacob. Sleep early tonight. You look like you've had a long day, Jacob said to her as he walked to the door while trying to balance the textbooks in his hands. Sophie was stunned. She wasn't expecting Jacob to be so nice to her, especially after she had just loaded him with enough work to keep him up all night. Before she could regain her composure, Jacob had left her room to go to Helen's studio in the attic. She felt bad, as he had left before she could stop him. She was going to ask him to sleep as well and to make notes for her some other time. But she felt horrible that she couldn't say anything to him. She began to think, he came and left as if it was a chore for him. He didn't even stop to say good night, or maybe stay a little longer to talk to me. Her thoughts straight away went to his beautiful classmate, whom she had met yesterday at the athletic games. She began wondering, would he leave like this, without saying a word, if Kathy was here instead of me? But she then realized that maybe she was overthinking this, and there was no point in doubting herself. So she got into bed and tried to go to sleep. When Jacob reached the studio, he found neatly laid out bedding on the floor, and on one side of the bedding were the clothes he had changed out of earlier. They had been washed and dried. Sophie's mother is such a thoughtful and considerate person. If Sophie is anything like her mother, I will be a happy man, he thought with a smile. Jacob put the textbooks on the floor before settling down. He picked a random book from the pile and began to study its contents. Outside, the storm continued into the night, as predicted by Helen. Thank God he did not sleep in the cold living room. The little attic was so warm and cozy. Jacob had no idea when sleep began to engulf him. The book he was reading slid from his hands and fell to the floor as he dozed off. In her room, Sophie was tossing and turning in her bed, unable to sleep. She stared up at the ceiling, covered with little glow-in-the-dark stars. After a while, she got up from her bed and tiptoed out of her room and up the stairs. She was curious about what Jacob was doing. When she found Jacob asleep with textbooks scattered around him, it touched her heart. The pitter-patter of raindrops and the cold wind from the rain made the small attic seem a little cold and a bit noisy. I shouldn't have been so rude to him, she thought for a moment and tiptoed into the room. She bent down to pick up the books to create more space for Jacob. She leaned to get closer to his face and stared at him quietly. He looked so peaceful while sleeping. Lost in her thoughts, she touched his hair ever so lightly, ran her fingers through them, and caressed him a little. At that moment, Jacob stirred a little in his sleep, and Sophie froze in her place. "If he sees me here like this, I will never hear the end of it," she thought to herself, and started gathering the books to leave as soon as possible. Before standing up, she quietly dragged the quilt, which had been kicked aside, and covered his body with it. The next morning, when Jacob woke up, he was a bit startled to find himself in a closed space instead of his dorm. But he soon remembered that he was at Sophie's. As he sat up, he saw that he was covered in the quilt that he had kicked aside, and he noticed that the textbooks kept beside him were gone. The heavy storm from last night was reduced to a light rainfall. He changed into his clothes and walked downstairs. When he passed by Sophie's room, it was rather quiet. He wanted to peek inside, but decided against it. He heard some noise coming from the kitchen and decided to go downstairs and have a look. He walked in and found Helen busy as usual. She was making breakfast. "Morning, Helen." He went in and greeted her. "You up already?" Helen smiled at him. "Did you sleep well last night?" she asked. "It was good. Isn't Sophie up yet?" Jacob asked. "She is a lazy one. She won't get up until someone wakes her. You can use her bathroom to freshen up. I've arranged a fresh towel and toothbrush and kept it in that bathroom for you," Helen said. "I'll wait for her to get up. It's not right to barge into her room," Jacob said. Helen nodded with a smile. Indeed, if Sophie found out that Jacob had seen her unladylike sleeping positions, she would fly into a rage and make a scene. "Sophie's father will drive you back to the university. Why don't you go and relax in the living room for now?" Helen said, as she flipped a pancake like a pro. "Pancakes and bacon? It's my favorite. Let me help you." Jacob walked over and began to help. Helen didn't refuse his help this time. She smiled and said, "You are a good guy." "And you are a great mother," Jacob replied, matching her smile. "Doesn't your mom cook you breakfast?" Helen asked, casually. Jacob thought for a minute before answering her. "She is very busy and has no time to do these things for me." Sensing the faint disappointment in Jacob's tone, Helen smiled at him. "It doesn't matter. This is your home now," she said. Jacob was touched. He wasn't certain what the future had in store for Sophie and him, but he knew for sure that he never wanted to lose a motherly figure like Helen. Not knowing how to answer her, he busied himself and worked silently. Soon after the breakfast was ready, Dracon and Sophie got up and came down to the kitchen. By now, the mouth-watering aroma of bacon had filled the whole room. Jacob and Helen laid the table together as the other two settled down. Jacob went into the bathroom in Sophie's room to wash up. Dracon was pleased to find out that Jacob had helped to make breakfast. Sophie was also pleasantly surprised. She liked how much Jacob respected her parents. However, she always got a little annoyed when her parents kept reiterating what a great guy Jacob was. After breakfast, Dracon got ready to drive Sophie and Jacob to their respective school and college. Helen was already dressed. She took off her apron, revealing her black halter dress. She put on her sunglasses and grabbed an elegant black purse before entering the garage. A minute later, Helen drove out. Jacob was surprised by Helen's instant switch from a homemaker to a fashionista. Not only was she a brilliant designer at the top of her game, but she was also trendy. After bidding goodbye to Helen, Jacob settled down in the back seat of Dracon's low-profile. Not wanting to draw more attention to himself, Jacob asked Dracon to drop him off about 100 meters away from the university's main gate. After Dracon drove away with Sophie, Jacob walked up to his university and made his way to his dorm. He found that his roommates had already left, so he picked up his bag in a hurry and walked back to the campus for his lectures. In the classroom, Sam was the first one to spot Jacob, so he waved at him to come over. As soon as Jacob got close to them, Sam asked him, "So, Jacob, tell us about the girl."
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.